What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Beansworthy Entertainment. In this video, we're going to go over the noon games for Week 9 of the 2023 NFL season. I'm just a guy behind the camera saying what I think will happen based on what I've seen this season, and also the statistics that we're about to go over. With that being said, I hope that you enjoy the video. And if you do, hit that like button, please and thank you. And also, check out the other videos and the streams that I have on several playlists on my channel. And if you like the content, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notifications when I go live. And also become a member of the Beansworthy Entertainment family. We also have a Discord. If you're interested in that, it's you could talk about music. You could talk about sports. You can talk about what you want. Video games. And we got plenty of channels in there for people that want to group up and play video games together. It's great. Be kind and respectful to others. And most of all, be kind and respectful to yourself. You're the number one person in this world. Nobody matters more than you do. Let's go ahead and let's get into the first game here. And the first game that I got lined up for us for the noon games is the Minnesota Vikings going to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. The Minnesota Vikings are ranked number 19 on the NFL.com Power Rankings with a 4-4 record and are second in the NFC North. The Atlanta Falcons are ranked number 17, also with a 4-4 record, and first in the NFC South. Let's go over the stats. And the Vikings, for offense, have 353.8 yards per game, 280.5 passing yards per game, and 73.3 rushing yards per game. They have scored 19 touchdowns this year and have 21.9 points per game. That is tied for 14th in the league. And their offensive line has allowed 18 sacks. Especially the later that we go into the season, the fact that that number stays below 20 still is good to me. That's kind of the number that I'm looking at, and you could actually increase it to like 25 necessarily since we're in week 9 of the season. This isn't sacks per game, that's 18 sacks that have been allowed this year. And looking at the Vikings offense, I was going over the numbers. Their passing yards per game is ranked second in the league. Their rushing yards per game is ranked 31st. So overall, their total yards per game is ranked 10th in the league. So they did have a good passing offense. That was before Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles. Second quarterback this year to go down with an Achilles injury. It's unfortunate to see that, and I don't know what kind of team that we're going to have out of the Vikings. I know fantasy-wise, a lot of people are selling on the receivers. They already were down Jay Jettas, and they were still maintaining production without Jay Jettas, but I don't know how it's going to go without Kirk Cousins. So these numbers are probably going to change real fast. The passing yards per game. And especially, I wouldn't say the rushing yards per game. Unfortunately, Alexander Mattison hasn't been able to produce this year. Cam Akers got traded over there, and he's not doing that great either. Just a couple of players to note on the Viking side. Now let's go over to the Falcons side, and for offense, they have 341.1 total yards per game, 214.9 passing yards per game, and 126.3 rushing yards per game. They have 13 touchdowns this year with 7 receiving touchdowns and 6 rushing touchdowns for 17.3 points per game. That is tied for 27th. And that offensive line has allowed 26. So we're getting a little bit over the number. Getting a little bit over the number that I want to see there. But looking at a little bit of foreshadowing and looking forward, the Vikings aren't good at quarterback pressure. Oh, gotta love winter. But for the rankings, Atlanta Falcons are pretty middle of the road. 18th for passing, 10th for rushing, so 14th altogether. But they're a more well-rounded offense comparative to the Vikings, and the injuries aren't a concern at this point. I'm gonna go over here. We're gonna pull up. I'm gonna pull up some games so I can get the injuries. I am. I just got off of work on Saturday night, and so whatever happens in the morning, make sure that you pay attention to the injuries. But this is as up to date as I possibly can get it. I have plans for tomorrow morning, and well, this morning, because you guys will be seeing this, I am dropping it at 9 o'clock in the morning. Let's get this up here. Come on. Vikings and Falcons. Yeah, they put Kirk Cousins on the injured reserve. Christian Darrisaw is questionable. Jalen Naylor is questionable for the Vikings. Offensive wise, Drake London, Keith Smith, and it's just Drake London and Keith Smith are out. Those are the offensive injuries for these two teams. Stat leaders for these two teams, it does still have Kirk Cousins here, but we've got a new quarterback that has never started before coming in. Oh, what was it? Why don't they have his name anywhere? The Vikings did trade for Josh Dobbs, but apparently they're going to be starting the rookie that they got. Why can't I think of his name right now? Jaren Hall. Jaren Hall will make his first career start. So, I'm not going to say Kirk's out for the year. Torn Achilles, obviously, he's done for the season. But the Vikings rushing, they have Alexander Matheson. And receiving, Justin Jefferson's there. That's not. Addison is going to be the next one down. So, good thing that I'm going over. And we're going to be precise with this. We don't have as many games to go through. Going to make sure that I get every single ounce of information that is possible. But the next receiver that is in line after Justin Jefferson is Jordan Addison, the rookie. So, Alexander Matheson and Jordan Addison. That's been messing me up so bad this week. Or this year in general. That they have those two guys. Coaching's got to be like Matheson and Addison. I didn't even realize that. I'm just thinking of the son for a last name. What do the Vikings have? I don't know. All right, moving on. On the Falcons side, they got Desmond Ridder, Bijan Robinson, and Drake London. Like I said, Drake London is questionable. But we will see action from Bijan Robinson and Desmond Ridder will be starting. So that's good. For the quarterback, Desmond Ridder, he's 157 completions on 240 attempts, 1,701 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Rushing wise, Alexander Matheson has 106 carries, 390 yards. He still does not have a touchdown. Bijan Robinson has 92 carries, 466 yards, and he did get the first rushing touchdown. I think that was last week or the week before. And then for the receiving yards, we have Jordan Addison, who has 36 catches for 482 yards and 7 touchdowns. Falcons, they have Drake London, who has 36 catches, 438 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Turnover-wise for these offenses, the Vikings have 5 interceptions and 10 fumbles. The Falcons have 6 interceptions and 8 fumbles. So about the same in the turnover department for offense. But if we're going to look at these two teams side by side, the better offense, I'm going to go with the Falcons. I think that's a no-brainer in this matchup. So with that, moving on to the defense, the Minnesota Vikings, they allow 322.8 total yards per game. They allow 221.1 passing yards per game and 101.6 rushing yards per game. They have allowed 17 touchdowns this year, 11 receiving and 6 rushing. They have allowed 20.3 points per game. That is 15th in the league. And they have gotten 23 sacks. So like I said, it's about mid-level to low grade on the quarterback pressure that they're getting in Minnesota. Rankings-wise, they're middle of the road. Passing, they're 15th. Rushing, they're 13th for defense. Remember, we're talking about defense. And overall, 11th in the league with that 322.8 total yards per game. So I say, comparative to the other defenses that are in the league, that's middle to lower level. With scoring wise, probably more middle of the road. Nothing too spectacular, but they're not doing terrible. They're not at the bottom of the barrel like some other teams in the league this year. Let's go over to the Falcons, and for the Falcons defense, they allow 296.6 total yards per game. They allow 194.6 passing yards per game and 102 rushing yards per game. They have allowed 16 touchdowns this year, 15 receiving, and only 1 rushing touchdown has been allowed by the Falcons defense. That is the best in the league, but allowing those 15 receiving touchdowns, that's 28th in the league, so pretty low there. 20.1 points per game allowed, that is 14th in the league. So technically looking at the rankings, yes, in middle of the road. The Falcons defense has 15 sacks. Looking at the yards numbers, the rankings, passing yards per game, they're 8th in the league. Rushing yards per game, 14th. And overall, the defense is allowed the 6th ranked yards per game in the league overall. The 15 sacks, they're not getting pressure. They're worse at getting pressure than the Vikings. Turnovers wise, on the defense, the Vikings have 6 interceptions and 4 fumbles. The Falcons have 4 interceptions and 3 fumbles. So the turnover differential isn't good for either of these teams, but the Vikings are a little bit better than the Falcons. The Vikings are -5 and the Falcons are -7. 2 of those fumbles on the Vikings defense are also have also been recovered for touchdowns. Where did mine go? I just hit my space bar and lost everything. But side by side, gonna go with the Falcons. The Falcons are definitely favored in my eyes, slightly. It's not as much as the offense of the Vikings, and nothing's changed on this defense. So yeah, the needle's tipping towards the Falcons for the defensive side of the ball as well. Yeah, I said those 2 fumble recovery touchdowns. Special teams, the Vikings kicker is 10 for 14 on field goals and 19 for 21 on his extra points. So he has 49 points. The Falcons, Younghoe Koo, has 16 for 17 field goals and 10 for 11 extra points. That is 58 points for Younghoe Koo. Going to the schedule to move forward with this game. The Vikings, they are 3-1 when they're on the road. And then the Falcons are 3-1 when they're at home. ESPN has this projected close. Vegas has the over-under at 37.5, and the Falcons favored by 4 points. And let's get the defensive injuries. For the Vikings, Dean Lowry is out. That'd be it. Falcons, Grady Jarrett and LaCale London, both on IR. DeMarco Hellams is out. So nothing really to report in this game to necessarily look at today going into the games. Jalen Naylor being someone that's questionable. Christian Darrisaw, key part of the offensive line. But this is an offense that, again, we got the rook that's coming in. I think that's about it for the first game, the Vikings versus Falcons, other than a score. Got to get you guys a score. Oh, wait, yeah. Before the score, the record. Vikings have lost to the Bucks, Eagles, Chargers, and Chiefs. They have beat the Panthers, Bears, 49ers, and Packers. So, again, a completely different team. So, their record right now is kind of up in the air. The Falcons side, they have lost to the Lions, Jags, Commanders, and Titans. They have beat the Panthers, Packers, Texans, and Buccaneers. So, well, 50-50, honestly, on that schedule, in my opinion, for the record on the Falcons. There's been a couple of games that I thought that they were going to win. But, ultimately, for this game, I feel like the Falcons are going to get a win with this one. Defense is probably going to hold the Falcons, but the Vikings offense is going to struggle. Their saving grace probably was Kirk Cousins, honestly, to tell you the truth. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Falcons and probably go ahead with I'm probably going to go with like 20-13. Yeah, let's go ahead and lock that in. 20-13, Falcons win at home against the Vikings. That's the first game. Let's move on to the next game. All right, moving on to the next game. We have the Arizona Cardinals that are going to Cleveland to take on my Browns. diehard Browns fan. Sucks that we lost Nick Chubb, but we got the Arizona Cardinals that are ranked dead last on the NFL Power Rankings with a 1-7 record, and they are last in the NFC West. The Browns are ranked number 12 on the power ranking list with a 4-3 record and third in the AFC North. Starting off, let's go into the Cardinals offense. The Cardinals offense has 318.6 total yards per game this year, 180.9 passing yards per game, and 137.8 rushing yards per game. They have allowed 15 touchdowns, 8 receiving, and 7 rushing. That is, or not allowed. Sorry about that. Go ahead and keep that in there. They have scored 8 receiving and 7 rushing. That is 18.9 points per game, tied for 22nd in the league. And that offensive line has only allowed 17 sacks. So, good job for that. Josh Dobbs got traded. Clayton Tune's in there. So, we'll see what Clayton's got. Completely different. I don't know about completely different dynamic. I give Josh Dobbs credit, and I'm surprised that he's not starting in Minnesota. But after a couple of weeks of him actually being in the system and him not starting is going to be confusing to me. But we got Clayton Tune that's in there running the offense. The other stat leaders, we got James Conner and Hollywood Brown. Just, this offense has been doing like just above bad. Like if there's a level right above bad and in between bad and the middle ground, that's where the Cardinals would lay. They are ranked 4th for their rushing yards per game, but 28th on passing, and overall they're 21st in the league for offense when it comes to yardage. And like I said, scoring-wise, they're tied for 22nd in the league. Not doing too great this year. Let's move on to the Browns. Their offense, I'll admit, isn't doing good either. If not, arguably worse than the Cardinals. But the Browns, yardage-wise, have the best defense on paper. Scoring wise, you have that's the Ravens. The Ravens take that. Scoring wise, Ravens are the best. Yardage wise, Browns are the best. Both of them in the AFC North. And little tidbit of information that if you guys did not know that, if it wasn't for the Browns, the Ravens would not have a franchise. Fuck you, Art Modell. Go ahead and get that out of the way. But, okay. Getting into the offense for the Cleveland Browns, they have 328.6 total yards per game this year, 180 passing yards per game, and 148.6 rushing yards per game. So they're second in the league when it comes to rushing the ball. 30th passing the ball. So, bigger spread, but I mean, you put it in you put it into perspective of that the argument can be made about these offenses, which one's the worst one. If Nick Chubb wasn't injured, completely different story, but unfortunately the Browns do not have Nick Chubb this year. The Browns have scored 13 touchdowns this year, 5 receiving and 8 rushing. 22 points per game is what they're put down, or what they have this year, and that is 13th in the league, and that offensive line has allowed 23 sacks. Offensive line, a little bit worse. Points per game, tad bit better. That spread is a little bit different, but the Browns are still able to command the run game. It's a close one, but since their points per game is three whole points, a whole field goal more per game than the Cardinals, I'm going to go with the Browns for the better offense in this matchup. Turnovers for these teams: the Cardinals have 5 interceptions and 4 fumbles. The Browns have 11 interceptions and 6 fumbles. So I probably should have said that. Even with those turnovers, though, scoring-wise, and got to sprinkle in the fact that I know that defense is doing great this year. But even without the defense, if we're just looking at both offenses, I would pick the Cleveland Browns. Stat leaders for these teams, they got Clayton Tune in there. Cardinals, they got Clayton Tune, James Conner, and Hollywood Brown. The Browns have different ones, obviously. Deshaun Watson is still dealing with his shoulder injury. We will see whenever that ends up being resolved. Sorry, I was trying to think of a term to say. Yeah, checking out these injuries. Wait, I don't want to go to the injuries yet. We're just going to go, we're going to go to the passers to get this done. Because, yeah. Since Deshaun Watson is not playing, the true leader in my eyes is P.J. Walker. So the Browns got P.J. Walker, Jerome Ford, and Amari Cooper. And for the quarterbacks, Clayton Tune, he's just had the one throw and one completion. So 1 for 1 and 4 yards for Clayton Tune. Then you got P.J. Walker. He has 48 completions on 97 attempts, 618 yards, and 1 touchdown for him. 5 interceptions, though. It's tough, but what do you expect out of a XFL quarterback? Thank God that Jerome Ford is actually in there and doing well. Moving on to the rushing leaders, we got James Conner that has 68 carries for 364 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like I was saying about Jerome Ford, he's doing great this year. 87 carries for 381 yards and 2 touchdowns. The receiving leaders, we got Hollywood Brown that has 38 catches, 416 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And Amari Cooper has 30 catches for 478 yards and only 1 touchdown this year. So, yeah. Looking at the two of them, we'll see what Clayton Tune has to do. Maybe Clayton Tune actually had something up his sleeve that ends up surprising us. Who knows? Moving on to the defensive side of the ball. The Cardinals, they allow 355.8 total yards per game, 225.1 passing yards per game, and 130.6 rushing yards per game. They have allowed 23 touchdowns this year, 12 receiving and 11 rushing. They allow 26.6 points per game. That is 27th in the league, and the Cardinals defense has 24 sacks. Now, I know that they got some decent pieces over there still on the Cardinals defense. Unfortunately, Budda Baker, I believe, has been the one. No. I thought maybe I'm not remembering that correct. I thought Budda Baker was dealing with injury issues earlier on in the year. But a lot of this team just is screaming the fact that they are rebuilding. We'll see what ends up happening with the Cardinals. That defense is definitely not great. For lack of a better term, just not great. Let's go over to the Browns defense, and like I said, they are the best in the league when it comes to yardage, except for rushing yards per game. The Philadelphia Eagles still are kings in that category. But the Browns, they allow 260 total yards per game. They allow 163.3 passing yards per game and 96.7 rushing yards per game. They have only allowed 15 touchdowns this year, 8 receiving and 7 rushing. 19.9 points per game are allowed. That is 12th in the league. And they have 20 sacks. That could be a lot better. That's just me knowing who is on that defensive line. Darius Smith and Myles Garrett. But yardage wise, the job is still getting done. The record is 4-3. And as far as I'm concerned, without Nick Chubb, that is great. The team's doing great. By a landslide, the Browns defense is better than the Cardinals defense. Turnovers wise, both teams have 5 interceptions and 5 fumbles. Cardinals, they have 1 fumble recovery for a touchdown. Oh, Browns also. So both teams have 1 fumble recovery for a touchdown. But the Browns do have those turnovers on offense that are that tip the scales in favor for the Cardinals when it comes to turnover differential. Cardinals are +1. The Browns are -7. The Cardinals, their kicker is 14 for 16 on field goals and 9 for 10 on extra points. So he has 51 points this year. Dustin Hopkins is the kicker that the Browns picked up, and he has 18 for 20 on field goals and 10 for 10 on extra points. So he has 52 points. Looking at the schedule, the Cardinals, their 1 win is against the Cowboys. The rest are just losses. The Commanders, Giants, 49ers, Bengals, Rams, Seahawks, and Ravens. Kind of assumed. And again, I feel like earlier in the year that I don't know what happened, but that Cowboys game where they got the win. A win is a win, but it was a fluke win. Also on the road, the Cardinals have not got a win yet. They are 0-4 on the road. Moving over to the Browns. The Browns had that Week 1 win against the Bengals. And then they have beat the Titans, the 49ers, and the Colts. They have lost to the Steelers, Ravens, and Seahawks. Ravens, yes. Steelers, I want to say questionable, but they're winning games. I was hoping the Titans actually were going to pull off a win, but turns out the Steelers were able to rally. Titans had a 13-10 lead, I think, at the half. Again, Mike Tomlin. But at home, the Browns are 3-1. And the defense is great. I know that it's unsure what this offense is going to be with Clayton Tune, but I don't see it being that much of a difference. The over-under, Vegas has 37.5 for this game. Same exact over-under as the Vikings-Falcons game. The Browns are favored by 8 points in this one. And I got to say that I think that it's the highest that I've seen the Browns favored in a long time, so I like seeing that. ESPN has the Browns heavily favored. And like I said, if we're going to go both offenses, I don't know what Clayton Tune. Cade York is the old kicker for the Browns. But I don't know what Clayton Tune has up his sleeve. We will see. But as of now, just altogether, Browns better team. They're at home. They got the record. Just coming off a tough loss against the Seahawks on the road. I'm going to go with the Browns, and I'm going to hit the over on this one because of the fact that it's 37.5. This is 22 points per game and 18.9 points per game on the Cardinals side. I'm going to go ahead. Browns 24 and the Cardinals 17. Lock that in. 24-17. Browns win at home against the Cardinals. And that will be it for game number 2. Like I said, lock it in. 24-17. Browns win. Next game on the slate, we have the Los Angeles Rams that are going to Green Bay to take on the Packers. The Los Angeles Rams this year, right now on week 9, are ranked number 21 in the NFL Power Rankings on the NFL.com Power Rankings list. The Los Angeles Rams have a record of 3-5 and are third in the NFC West. Just give me a second. I gotta just calm down. Been rattling off song names, doing music bingo. That's what I did for work tonight. So, just gotta calm myself back down. But the Packers, they are ranked number 25 on the NFL.com Power Rankings list with a 2-5 record and are third in the NFC North. Let's go into the offensive stats. And the Rams, they have 354.5 total yards per game, 245 passing yards per game, 109.5 rushing yards per game. They have 17 touchdowns this year and 21.9 points per game. They have scored 8 receiving and 9 rushing touchdowns, and the offensive line has allowed 26. Right at that number. Right at 20. Love to see it. Puka Nacua, he's doing good. Cooper Kupp getting started, but Matt Stafford's still doing all right, and Puka Nacua keeps on stunning the world with his story. In my opinion, making a strong case for the offensive rookie of the year. And we'll see. Moving on and going into the second half of the season and what's going to happen. And the passing is what holds up that Rams offense. In the league, they're ranked 8th for passing yards per game and 17th for passing yards per game. Or rushing yards per game. 8th for passing, 17th for rushing. So, they're held up by their passing game a lot. And, Kyren Williams is doing his job. So, got a tough division that's going on. And out of all those teams that are over there, third place in the NFC West fits them. The Niners and the Seahawks are better. Let's move on over to the Packers. The Packers offense, they have 287 total yards per game, 198.6 passing yards per game, and 88.4 rushing yards per game. They have 15 touchdowns this year as well, but 11 receiving and 4 rushing. They have 20 points per game, which is 21st in the league, and the offensive line has only allowed 14 sacks. So that offensive line is doing great for Jordan Love, but let's go into the turnovers. The Rams, they have 7 interceptions and 1 fumble. The Packers, they don't have any fumbles on offense, but Jordan Love has thrown 8 interceptions this year. The Jordan Love story is not working out in Green Bay, and I thought that it was going to work out. The tools just aren't there. They're ranked in the bottom of the league for yards per game. 20 points per game, that is 21st. Again, that's 21st in the league. So, When we're looking at this matchup, the Rams are the my favorite when it comes to these two teams. You still got Stafford, and Puka Nacua is out there doing his thing. Love to see it. The stat leaders for the offense on these two teams. The Rams have Matt Stafford, Kyren Williams, and Puka Nacua. Packers, they have Jordan Love, A.J. Dillon, and Jalen Reed. Jordan Reed. Yeah, that's Jordan. Jesus. I just got to get a name again. I'm going to feel bad if it was not what I said. Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed. And those are the stat leaders for the offense. Matt Stafford, he has 166 completions on 278 attempts, 2,070 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. Jordan Love, he has 135 completions on 234 attempts, 1,492 yards, 11 touchdowns, and those 8 interceptions for him. The running backs, Kyren Williams has 97 carries, 456 yards, and 6 touchdowns. A.J. Dillon, he has 85 carries, 266 yards, and 1 touchdown. Again, just underwhelming for the Packers offense this year. The receiving yards, Puka Nacua, he's got 61 catches, 795 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jaden Reed, he has 20 catches, 314 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So at least Reed's got some touchdowns. Puka Nacua is doing great when it comes to yards this year. Absolutely killing it. And, again, love to see it. And that just goes to further it even more. Looking at these two offenses, I'm picking the Rams. So, moving on to the defense for this matchup, the Rams, they allow 333.6 total yards per game, 218.5 passing yards per game, and 115.1 rushing yards per game. They've allowed 17 touchdowns this year, 8 receiving and 9 rushing, and that makes it 23 points per game that's allowed, which is 21st in the league. And the Rams only have 15 sacks. That's not great. They're not getting the pressure there. I do know that defense isn't what it used to be, and a few pieces got taken away. So, it's a little tough on the defensive side of the ball for the Rams this year. Thirteenth in the league for passing yards per game allowed, 20th in the league for rushing yards per game allowed, 17th overall. So, middle to bottom tier defense. I'm moving on to the Packers. The Packers allow 339.1 total yards per game. They allow 207.1 passing yards per game. And they allow 132 rushing yards per game. But they have only allowed 15 touchdowns this year, 8 receiving and 7 rushing. But 22.3 points per game have been allowed. That is 20th in the league, so they're right above the Rams. They have 19 sacks, so a couple more sacks than the Rams have. Both of these teams have 4 interceptions and 2 fumbles on defense. Just looking at it, these defenses are the same. Good at defending the pass. So, looking at it, yeah, I know that was close on one before, but this one is so close that I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna say even. Both defenses are even. So in this matchup, it's gonna come down to turnovers, or who obviously turnovers. Who's got the better offense? Stuff like that. Both teams have a turnover differential of -2. The Rams have one pick six. The kicker for the Rams, he's 19 for 25 on his field goals and 12 for 13 on extra points. So he has 69 points this year. Nice. And the Packers kicker, he's 9 for 10 on field goals and 13 for 13 on extra points. So he's only got 40 points. That's not good. Another case of why the Packers are just underwhelming this season. And I'm not saying that like I want them to be, because I want to see, I want to see success in the league. And it's tough watching people struggle. Schedule-wise, the Rams, they've lost to the 49ers, Bengals, Eagles, Steelers, and Cowboys. But they have won against the Seahawks, Colts, and Cardinals. They beat the Seahawks at the beginning of the year, but everything kind of like evened out. I think the Seahawks just had a little bit of a rough start. Colts, they're a middle ground team. Cardinals, they're dead last in the power rankings. The Rams are 2-2 on the road. So looking at that, it could be a 50-50. I have said that Lambeau Field is going to support the Packers and got bit in the ass before this year. So not too sure on where I stand with the advantage of being at home or not. The Packers schedule, they have lost to the Falcons, Lions, Raiders, Broncos, and Vikings. And they have the 2 wins that they got against the Bears and the Saints. Bears, not a special win. Saints, a little bit special because of the fact of that massive comeback that ended up happening. And the Saints defense is pretty good this year. The numbers are all there, and just watching the games, the Saints defense has it locked in this year. They're doing great in my opinion. So, turnovers are the same. Turnover differential is the same. Defenses are the same. Vegas has the over-under at 38.5, and the Packers are favored by 3. ESPN has the Rams favored, though, and I'm going to go with ESPN on this side. That over-under is questionable. I'm going to go ahead and hit the over, though, on it. We're going to have a close game, though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the Rams 24 and the Green Bay Packers 21. We're going to go ahead and lock that in. 24-21, the Rams win on the road against the Packers. Improve that road record to 3-2. That's my prediction. On to our next game. He's got a couple more left. Yeah, we got 4 games left. We got 3 down, 4 to go. In this game, we have the Washington Commanders going to New England to take on the Patriots, who have honestly been the AFC version of the Packers this year. But with a coach that is extremely prolific. But the Washington Commanders, they are number 27 on the NFL.com power rankings list with a 3-5 record and are third in the NFC East. The Patriots are number 28th on the rankings for NFL.com power rankings with a 2-6 record and last in the AFC East. Been pretty underwhelming. But We're going to start with the Commanders, and the Commanders offense, they have 319.6 total yards per game, 233.8 passing yards per game, and 85.9 rushing yards per game. They have 19 touchdowns that they've scored this year, 13 receiving and 6 rushing. They have 21.4 points per game, which is tied for 17th in the league. But that offensive line is not doing well in Washington. They have 41 sacks that they have allowed. Not to mention that the team, like I said, in the noon games, we're going to go over a little bit as I'm getting into it. The Commanders sold 2 big pieces on their defensive line at the trade deadline. So Sweat went to the Browns. Sweat went to the Bears. Chase Young went to the 49ers. 2 key pieces, but it seems that that's all that they moved. We'll see what ends up happening. They got some good draft capital out of it, in my opinion. But, man, just thinking of that. 41 sacks have been allowed. I feel bad for Sam Howell, but thank God that he's actually producing. They are ranked 12th in the league when it comes to passing yards per game. Rushing yards per game, though, they are 26. So overall, they are 20th in the league when it comes to yardage. Like I said, 21.4 points per game. They are tied for 17th. So altogether, just kind of middle of the road is where that ends up. A little bit further down. But I kind of don't want to say that the Commanders are doing bad. They're probably the best out of the teams that are doing bad. We'll say that. But moving over, let's go to the Patriots offense, and they have 284 total yards per game this year, 200.4 passing yards per game, and 84.4 rushing yards per game. They only have 13 touchdowns that they've scored, 9 receiving and 4 rushing, and 31st in the league with 14.8 points per game scored. The offensive line has only allowed 18 sacks, though. So they're protecting the quarterback. Quarterback's not doing so well. They are really low. 20th in the league for passing, 27th for rushing, 26th overall. Like I said, 31st when it comes to scoring. Turnover-wise, the Commanders have 8 interceptions and 4 fumbles. The Patriots have 8 interceptions and 5 fumbles. So both teams are identical when it comes to turnovers. Stat leaders for these guys, the Commanders, they have Sam Howell, Brian Robinson Jr., and Terry McLaurin. The Patriots, they have Mac Jones, Ramondre Stevenson, and Kendrick Bourne. So let's get into the quarterbacks. Sam Howell has 206 completions on 308 attempts, 2,146 yards, 13 touchdowns, but he has those 8 interceptions. Mac Jones, he's got 173 completions on 260 attempts, 1,641 yards for 9 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. The running backs, Brian Robinson has 95 carries, 384 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Ramondre has 97 carries, 307 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The receivers, Terry McLaurin has 42 catches, 495 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Kendrick Bourne has 37 catches, 406 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Not too bad of stats for those guys. Looking at it, it doesn't look... I mean, Sam Howell's got a couple more interceptions. Brian Robinson has a couple more, not interceptions, touchdowns. Brian Robinson has a couple more touchdowns, but Kendrick Bourne has more touchdowns. Either way, then when it comes to the quarterback scoring more, they are 17th, tied for 17th in the league on the Commanders side. So going with this matchup, easily I'm going to pick the Commanders offense as the better offense in this matchup. Weirdly enough, the Vegas and ESPN are favoring the Patriots in this matchup. And that might make sense when we actually move on. Let's get into the defensive side of the ball. And the Commanders, they allow 374.1 total yards per game. They allow 256.8 passing yards per game and 117.4 rushing yards per game. They have allowed 23 touchdowns this year, 18 receiving and 5 rushing, and have 28.5 points per game that they've allowed this year. That is 31st in the league. The defense has 25 sacks, but with allowing all of those points, that's not anything special. This defense definitely needs some work. And they just got rid of 2 key pieces. Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it plays out for them. I feel like those guys are going to have success. The Bears already have already extended Sweat, and my thought process on that was, hey, we've got draft capital, so why not go out and get him now, and then negotiate an extension on our terms instead of having a bid war with everybody in free agency. Kind of goes into the fact of it's not the same as the Deshaun Watson trade, but I feel like the extension was already pre-negotiated. A friend of mine also does as well. I mean, just the way that it went. It went like the Deshaun Watson deal where he had the guaranteed money immediately as soon as the trade happened. So, I think that was nothing illegal was done about it as far as it goes with the legalities in the NFL. But I just feel like that it just was already pre-planned, and I mean, it's a decent idea. That's experienced defensive lineman that has a lot of skill, and you can go ahead and put some other pieces around him, and that defensive line is going to be one of the best in the league. Just my opinion, but that's the way that I feel, and the reason why they did that. Moving on, let's get over to the Patriots side, and the Patriots on defense, they allow 321.1 total yards per game, 223.3 passing yards per game, and 97.9 rushing yards per game. They've allowed 18 touchdowns this year, 11 receiving and 7 rushing, and they only allow 26 points per game. But that is 26th in the league, so saying like only allow is not saying anything special. And they only have 15 sacks, so they're having trouble pressuring the quarterback. Luckily enough, they have the yardage. When it comes to defense, they are 17th for passing defense, 9th for rushing defense, 10th overall in the league. And turnovers for these teams, the Commanders have 5 interceptions and 7 fumbles. The Patriots have 4 interceptions and 3 fumbles, so the turnover differential tips massively into the scale of the Commanders because the Commanders have an even turnover differential and the Patriots have a -6 turnover differential. It's like going back comparing the turnover differential ratio with the Cardinals-Browns game. But yeah, we're talking about this game here. Patriots, they do have one safety. And the kickers for these teams, the Washington Commanders kicker is 10 for 14 on field goals, 17 for 17 on extra points, so he has 47 points this year. And the New England kicker is 9 for 13 on field goals and 11 for 11 on extra points, so he has 38 points. Schedule-wise, the Commanders are 2-2 on the road, and the Patriots are 1-3 at home. And the Commanders, they have lost to the Bills, Eagles, Bears, Giants, and then Eagles again. They have beat the Cardinals, Broncos, and Falcons. Falcons should have won that game, in my opinion, and nothing special at all, honestly, with beating the Cardinals and Broncos. Honestly, now I'm realizing that I was a little delusional on the fact that the Commanders were doing well this season. Obviously they're not. They are selling. I've just got to apologize, guys. I know that I say a lot. Bear with me. We'll work through it. There's been little bits of progress every single time. And I'm still learning. Still learning. I don't think that I'm going to be outside of the learning curve probably for a while now. And you can always keep learning. But back to the fact of about a 50-50 on the strength of schedule for the Commanders, and they have not executed against in the games that they should have. That Giants game, Bears game, they should have won. So instead of being 3-5, they should be 5-3. Over on the Patriots side, they have lost the Eagles, Dolphins, Cowboys, Saints, Raiders, and Dolphins again. They have beat the Jets and the Bills. I don't know how they ended up beating the Bills a couple of weeks ago. The Jets, I'm going to go with the fact of it being the defense and go back. I don't know if I said it when I was talking about them, but I'm definitely picking the Patriots defense. I did pick the Commanders offense, but getting here into the defensive side of the ball with 26 points per game allowed versus the 21.4 points per game for the Commanders. I believe that statistics are kind of gonna. I think this is. I think the fact that the Patriots are favored makes sense. The Patriots are at home. I know that they have a 1-3 record at home, but it just seems right. I'm gonna go ahead and fucking eat crow for this probably. It's really got my gut feeling is Patriots, but honestly, I keep on looking, and there might be something that happens with the Commanders this week. I know that they just traded those guys away, and they didn't really have anything going on defense anyway. Maybe that little bit was the couple of wins that they had. But the points per game, you look at the points per game, Commanders have 21.4, and the Patriots only have 14.8. So that's 21.5 points per game versus 15 points per game. And the defenses are only 2.5 points apart when it comes to points per game allowed. Gonna retract a little bit, and actually I am gonna go with the Commanders on this one. And the over-under is 40.5 if I haven't said that yet, and the Patriots are favored by 2.5. But I'm gonna go with the Commanders in this one, and I'm gonna go with the under. We're gonna go with the under. And this one, we're going to go with another close one, actually. We'll go with another close one for this one, and we'll have the Commanders winning 21-17. Go ahead and lock that in. 21-17, the Commanders win on the road versus the Patriots. Just want to take this time, since we have been talking about the games for a little bit, take a little bit of a break, and let you guys know, or remind you guys, don't forget to check out the other content on the channel. If you're enjoying this video, hit that like button as well. Maybe even share the content to a friend. Show them my page. Anything helps. And just watching the video. If you're here, thank you for watching. Always, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. On to the next one. We got the Chicago Bears that are going to New Orleans to take on the Saints. And the Bears, they are number 29 on the NFL.com Power Rankings list with a 2-6 record, and they are last in the NFC North. The Saints, they are 14th on the NFL.com Power Ranking list with a 4-4 record and second in the NFC South. Going into the stats for these teams, there's that word again. The Bears, they have 320.6 total yards per game, 187.9 passing yards per game, and 132.8 rushing yards per game. They have 19 touchdowns this year, 12 receiving and 7 rushing, 21.4 points per game, which is tied for 17th in the league. But 28 sacks have been allowed by that offensive line. That's riding the line of being dangerous in my eyes. Tyson Bagent came in for Justin Fields. First game was good, and then I don't know what happened. And it was against the Chargers defense. There was no excuse for the fact of that happening to him. On the road, maybe, but that Chargers defense is arguably the worst defense in the league. So I was expecting Tyson to actually do something, and they would be able to command the game. Unfortunately not. So we'll see if it's just a little bit of a roller coaster ride that we're going to have here, or if Tyson just looked good against the Raiders. Which, honestly, we could probably go ahead and say that it might be the other. But moving on to the Saints offense. The Saints, they have 349.1 total yards per game, 243.1 passing yards per game, and 106 rushing yards per game. They have scored 15 touchdowns this year, 8 receiving and 7 rushing, and have 21.4 points per game. They're both the same. Both of them are tied for 17th, so both offenses have the same points per game. The Saints have only allowed 21 sacks, so a little bit better protection over there. Stats-wise, it's a little bit flip-flop. The Bears, they have the 6th ranked rushing offense and 26th ranked passing offense. And then the Saints, they have the 9th ranked passing offense and the 20th ranked rushing offense. So, looking at these two teams, the turnovers, the Bears have 9 interceptions and 4 fumbles. The Saints have 5 interceptions and 5 fumbles. And looking at the turnovers, and the turnovers might actually be where I'm going to decide that the Saints are the better offense between these two teams in this matchup. 12th overall in the league, where the Bears are 19th overall for yards. Again, both have the same points per game. Better protection, because there's only 21 sacks allowed versus the Bears 28. So yeah, turnovers, yards a little better, and protection. Saints are a better offense in this matchup. So let's move on, and we'll go on to the stat leaders. Justin Fields is still out, I believe, or is he going to be starting? Let's actually look into that. Will Justin Fields be playing? They don't have him on the injury report for the game, but he is out. So Tyson Bagent is going to be starting again. So it's Tyson Bagent for the Bears. It's Tyson Bagent, Khalil Herbert, and DJ Moore. For the Saints, we have Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, and Chris Olave. And then going into the quarterbacks, let me grab Tyson's stats here quick. Tyson, he has 56 completion on 80 attempts for 477 yards and only one touchdown. He has 3 interceptions this year. And that's just throughout the course of 2 games. Quarterback rating is 73.8. It's tough. And I was saying about how the Saints have a great defense. Can't say arguably one of the best because we've got Browns and Ravens who are duking it out on an argument of what do you hold more important when you're ranking a defense, yards or scoring? And both sides honestly have very good arguments on that one. And I'm honestly 50-50, even though I do hold yards a little bit more. But scoring matters, obviously. For the Saints, Derek Carr, he has 182 completions on 282 attempts, 1,910 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. So Derek Carr's doing pretty good this year. On the running back side, Khalil Herbert has 51 carries for 272 yards. He has yet to get a touchdown this year. Alvin Kamara has 86 carries, 320 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The receivers, DJ Moore has 44 catches, 691 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Olave has 44 catches, 517 yards, and 1 touchdown. Not that bad for the Saints, honestly, with the stat leaders. And Alvin Kamara's back. I feel like they're doing good. And the defense is doing great. Let's go into the defensive numbers. But we're going to start with the Bears. The Bears, they allow 341 total yards per game, 262.3 passing yards per game, and 78.8 rushing yards per game. So their rushing defense is great. And now they're going to have Montez Sweat in the mix. So they're going to have a little bit more of a pass rush / run stopper in him. Unfortunately, the Bears on defense are ranked 30th in the league and 23rd overall for yards. They have allowed 27.3 points per game, which is 28th in the league, and they only have 10 sacks. So the defense doesn't have very many sacks. Sweat just makes more and more sense the further down into this defense that I dive. And especially how they did it. It was pretty good. Different key factors that are obviously in there. Secondary needs some help, and they've had injury issues with their safeties this year. So, going over to the Saints defense is allows 290. The Saints defense allows 296.4 total yards per game, 189.5 passing yards per game, and 106.9 rushing yards per game. That is, overall, they are fifth in the league with the seventh ranked passing defense and 15th ranked rushing defense. They've only allowed 14 touchdowns, 10 receiving, and 4 rushing, and 19.3 points per game allowed. That is ninth in the league when it comes to the Saints. So they got the yards and the points. 15 sacks, so they're getting to the quarterback. And turnovers for these teams, the Bears have 6 interceptions and 3 fumbles. The Saints have 9 interceptions and 4 fumbles. It just seals the deal. Both teams have a pick 6. The Bears' turnover differential is -4. The Saints' turnover differential is +3. So the Bears are in for a tough day in New Orleans. And the numbers say it. We know how the Bears have performed this year. Maybe we have some. Maybe we experience upset on the road. The Bears kicker is 11-11 for field goals, 16 for 17 on extra points. He has 49 points this year. The Saints kicker, they still have one guy? Or no, that's Lutz. I think they have Lutz still. And if it is Lutz, he's got 17 for 21 on field goals and 16 for 16 extra points for 67 points total this year. Schedule-wise, the Bears are 1-3 on the road, and they've only got the 2 wins this year, one against the Commanders, one against the Raiders. They've lost against the Packers, Bucks, Chiefs, Broncos, Vikings, and Chargers. Not a good look. Not a good look at all. The Saints, they're 1-2 at home. They have beat the Titans, Panthers, Patriots, and Colts, but lost to the Packers, Bucks, Texans, and Jags. Packers was a terrible loss of control for the game in allowing them to come back, especially with the wishy-washy offense that they have. Buccaneers have been doing good this year. Texans are middle of the road. Jaguars are red hot. So, kind of self-explanatory with the losses that the Saints have had. I'm not going to hold anything against them for those. They make sense to me. Vegas has the over-under at 41.5, and the Saints are favored by 8 points. ESPN has the Saints favored heavily. And I'll go ahead and agree with this one. Both points per game are equal. Question is are the Saints going to allow points to the Bears? And honestly, I don't think so. So I'm going to go with the under on this one. And the Saints are going to get a couple. They're gonna hit their mark. I'm going to go ahead with 21-13. The Saints win at home. So lock that in. 21-13. Saints beat the Bears at home. Couple more games left for this video, and we'll be done. This next game, we've got the Seahawks going to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. And the Seahawks, they are number 10 on the NFL.com power ranking list with a 5-2 record and first in the NFC West after the Niners taking that loss, taking over first place in the NFC West. I love to see it. The Ravens, they are number 2 on the power ranking list with a 6-2 record and first in the AFC North. Do I dare say that this might be a preview of a Super Bowl matchup if I end up being correct on what I did for my tier list back in Week 8? We'll see how things go. But this could be. If it ends up being it, this video is here. And I hope to God that I remember so I can go back. This game, the Seahawks-Ravens game. But let's get into the numbers. Offensive-wise, the Seahawks have 334.7 total yards per game, 227.6 passing yards per game, and 107.1 rushing yards per game. They have 16 touchdowns, 9 receiving, and 7 rushing, and have 24 points per game, which is 11th in the league. The offensive line has only allowed 14 sacks, which is great. Geno Smith, he's showing some inconsistency, but in reality, he's getting up there in age. His weapons also are. It's an aging situation in Seattle, but I feel like with the attitude of win now while we have this, will empower them and get them through. I know that this is a stretch because we're still far out, but inside in my heart, I feel like the Seahawks are going to make the playoffs. And not only make the playoffs, the right moves are going to be made. Not like trading wise or anything. I'm talking about the right decisions are going to be made. That's a better term. The right decisions are going to be made in the playoffs, and this team has a chance of contending for a championship. But we'll see. We'll see how things unfold. Kenneth Walker III, he's doing pretty good this year. The receivers on the Seahawks are a little mid, but could that be them or Geno Smith? Like I said, is showing a little bit of inconsistency, in my opinion. So, moving on, let's go to the Ravens offense, and they have 350.8 total yards per game, 207.6 passing yards per game, and 143.1 rushing yards per game. They have 23 touchdowns this year, 9 receiving and 14 rushing for 25.3 points per game, which is 7th in the league, and that offensive line only has allowed 20 sacks. So right at that 20 number that I always keep mentioning, and I love that number. Looking at the turnovers, the Seahawks have 6 interceptions and 2 fumbles. The Ravens, they have 3 interceptions and 7 fumbles. So, Ravens need to secure the ball better. Seahawks, Geno needs to stop throwing interceptions. Red zone interceptions have not been a thing in the tenure that Geno Smith has been at Seattle. But recently, they have been showing their ugly head. It's unfortunate, but these things happen in the league. When it comes down to these two offenses, it's like Seattle Seahawks, they are middle of the ground. They're 15th passing offense, 15th in the league for passing offense, 19th in the league for rushing, 16th overall. Then you have the Ravens, who are 19th in the league for passing, but 3rd in the league for rushing, thanks to Lamar Jackson. A very big thanks to Lamar Jackson. That is the reason why they have that. Overall, they are 11th in the league when it comes to yards for offense. Again, 7th in the league for points per game. Probably going to go with the Ravens offense on this one. Lamar Jackson is a big key to that. And I feel like Lamar Jackson, they're at home. There's going to be a big game from Lamar Jackson today with this matchup. I know that the Seahawks have a good rushing defense, but I feel like Lamar just takes advantage of defenses. He's elite. No question about it. I'm not. I'm not even going to entertain. Or I will, but I will actively avoid trying to have a conversation with somebody that's going to tell me that Lamar Jackson is not elite. Go ahead and say it, but the numbers are there. But yeah, Ravens offense, and for the offense, Seattle has the stat leaders on the offense. Seattle has Geno Smith, Kenneth Walker, and DK Metcalf. The Ravens, they have Lamar Jackson, Gus Edwards, and Zay Flowers. The quarterbacks, Geno has 152 completions on 225 attempts, 1,645 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. So just a little bit inconsistent. Oh, I just realized that was saying that. As I said that, Gus Edwards actually popped up there. Lamar Jackson doesn't lead in the rushing category anymore. But Lamar Jackson, he has 160 completions on 227 attempts, 1,767 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So, Geno and Lamar are close to each other. It's just that Lamar has half of the interceptions and a couple more completions. And also 100 more yards. So, use that information if you will. The running backs, Kenneth Walker has 117 carries, 516 yards for 6 touchdowns. Gus has 105 carries, 426 yards, and 5 touchdowns this year. The receivers, DK has 27 catches, 404 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Zay has 44 catches, 461 yards, and just the 1 touchdown. Both these teams are heavyweights, in my opinion. And let's move on to the defense and where I think the game is going to be decided. It's going to be on this side of the ball. Like I said, the Ravens are number one. They're number one in the league. They have the best points per game allowed. But the Seattle Seahawks, their defense allows 331 total yards per game, 234.3 passing yards per game, and 96.9 rushing yards per game. They've only allowed 15 touchdowns this year and only 19.7 points per game allowed. That is 11th in the league. And they have 26 sacks. So they're creating pressure. They're not allowing a lot of points. But we're just going to shift right over because of the fact of the Baltimore Ravens, who are the best in the league when it comes to not letting people score. Also, they are right behind the Browns when it comes to yardage as well. So if you're going to make the argument, and I actually talked with someone about this, even with the Browns being my team, I'll probably go with the Ravens, that the Ravens have the number 1 defense in the league. Especially after what the Ravens defense did to the Browns. I know that the offense ain't anything spectacular, but we only got 3 points. But the Ravens, they allow 276.5 total yards per game, 176.6 passing yards per game, and 99.9 rushing yards per game. They've only allowed 9 touchdowns this year, 6 receiving and 3 rushing, and 15.1 points per game allowed. Like I said, that is the best in the league, and they lead the league with 31 sacks. Their defense has the most sacks in the league. Going forward, we're going to talk over the turnovers. The Seahawks on defense have 6 interceptions and 4 fumbles. The Ravens on defense have 8 interceptions and 3 fumbles. The Ravens have 1 safety. Seahawks have 2 pick sixes. Both turnover differentials are in the positive. Seahawks are +2. Ravens are +1. So they're even around there. The Seahawks kicker, he's 14 for 18 on field goals and 16 for 16 on extra points. So there's 58 points that he has this year. Justin Tucker, he has 13 for 16 on field goals and 21 for 22 on his extra points. So Justin Tucker has 60 points this year. Schedule-wise, the Seahawks are 2-1 on the road, and the Ravens are 2-1 at home. In my opinion, this is going to be the game of the week to watch. And that's saying with Miami and Kansas City playing each other this week. Just looking over this is the game to watch this week. Noon game. I hope that I'll be able to catch this one. But Vegas has the over-under at 44.5. The Ravens are favored by 6 points. ESPN has the Ravens favored massively. And when I was describing the defense, that's the key right there. And since the Ravens don't like letting people score, I'm going to go ahead and give the Ravens the dub on this one. And not only that, but the offense is going to have a heyday. Might have shades of that Detroit Lions game, but let's hope that the Seattle Seahawks put up a little bit more fight than the Detroit Lions. If they do, that just even solidifies more the fact of the Seahawks being the ones that are championship contenders, because the only other team in the NFC is the Eagles. And even if the Seahawks do good, they have to get through the Eagles. I hope the Seahawks don't have to see the Eagles early in the playoffs. If that ends up playing out, everything that I'm thinking about right now is completely out the window. But I feel like the Ravens are going to stack up points. Seahawks, I feel like actually will put up a fight. The offense is just good, and just got a gut feeling Gino might have a good day today. But I'm still going to take the Ravens winning. Take the Ravens winning, and I'm going to give the Ravens 34. We're going to give the Seattle Seahawks 17. So lock that in, 34-17. Ravens win at home against the Seahawks. Last game on the list. In this game, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that are going to Houston to take on the Texans. I'm a little excited for this game because I want to see the Texans bounce back, giving up the first win of the year to the team that hadn't won yet. Plus, I thought that game was going to be a little bit more exciting, being C.J. Stroud versus Bryce Young. Unfortunately not. But hopefully this is a bounce-back game. Let's go ahead and get into the numbers. The Buccaneers, they are ranked number 20 on the NFL.com Power Rankings. They have a 3-4 record and third in the NFC South. Houston Texans, they are number 16 on the NFL.com Power Rankings list with a 3-4 record and second in the AFC South. The Buccaneers on offense, they have 298.3 total yards per game, 220.4 passing yards per game, 77.9 rushing yards per game. The Bucs have 11 touchdowns scored this year, 10 receiving and only 1 rushing touchdown. Pretty low, 17.3 points per game. That is tied for 27th in the league. But the offensive line has only allowed 11 sacks. So that's pretty good there. Baker Mayfield's been doing great this year. The offensive line's been doing a good job at protecting him. Defense could be doing better. Always there's room for improvement. But in a nutshell, I'm just I'm really glad to actually see Baker Mayfield succeeding. Uh, Regret that we couldn't be patient and have this version of Baker Mayfield instead of having Deshaun Watson. But gotta take what you can get, I guess. But yeah, going over to the Texans, their offense has 330.4 total yards per game, 238.6 passing yards per game, and 91.9 rushing yards per game. They have 13 touchdowns scored this year, 10 receiving, and 3 rushing. And the Texans have 21.1 points per game. That is 20th in the league. And they have only allowed 15 sacks. Both teams haven't allowed a lot of sacks. Looking over at the defense hasn't gotten a lot of sacks either. So I don't see that being a thing in this game, to say the least. Turnover-wise, the Buccaneers on offense have 4 interceptions and 2 fumbles. The Texans on offense have 1 interception and 3 fumbles. And going Buccaneers, 17th in the league passing offense, 30th rushing offense, 23rd overall. Texans, 11th passing, 23rd rushing, 17th overall. I'm taking the Texans between these two teams for offense. And looking even further, I think that I might even do that with the defense as well. But that explains the numbers in Vegas. Vegas has the over-under at 39.5, and the Texans favored by 3. ESPN's got this literally 50-50. Stat leaders on these offenses, the Buccaneers have Baker Mayfield, Rachaad White, and Mike Evans. Houston has C.J. Stroud, Dameon Pierce, and Nico Collins. And the quarterbacks, Baker has 158 completions on 246 attempts, 1,600 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Again, good job, Baker Mayfield. That is doing good. C.J. Stroud, he's got 143 completions on 237 attempts, 1,800 yards, 9 touchdowns, and just 1 interception this year. A fantastic rookie year that's happening for CJ. I am in love with it. The running backs, Rachaad White has 92 carries for 305 yards and 1 touchdown. Dameon Pierce has 109 carries for 327 yards and 1 touchdown. The receivers, Mike Evans has 33 catches for 507 yards and 5 touchdowns this year. And Nico Collins has 33 catches for 577 yards and 3 touchdowns this year. So yeah, just going even further into it. C.J. Stroud, I take that side. The only one that is debatable is the fact that Mike Evans is still Mike Evans, Mr. Consistency. I honestly didn't notice until statistics that were brought up about him hitting certain amounts of yards every single year. Dude's doing it. But moving on, let's get into the defense. The Buccaneers, they allow 354.6 total yards per game, 256 passing yards per game, and 98.6 rushing yards per game. They've allowed 12 touchdowns this year, 8 receiving and 4 rushing. They have 18.3 points per game allowed, which is tied for 6th in the league. And like I said, nothing spectacular. The defense only has 18 sacks for the Buccaneers. Over on the Texans side, they allow 335.4 total yards per game, 236.1 passing yards per game, and 99.3 rushing yards per game. They have allowed 13 touchdowns this year, 5 receiving and 8 rushing, and 18.3 points per game allowed. Another tie that is a tie within the matchup. Another tie within a tie within the matchup. Both teams are tied for 6. Both teams are 6th place in the league, 18.3 points per game allowed, 18-6 for the Bucks, 15 for the Texans. Yardage-wise, Buccaneers 28th passing, 10th rushing, 25th overall. Texans 23rd passing, 11th rushing, 18th overall. Turnover-wise on the defense, Buccaneers have 7 interceptions and 7 fumbles, and the Texans have 4 interceptions and 5 fumbles. So the turnover differential, also Buccaneers have 1 pick six. The turnover differentials, Buccaneers are +8, Texans are +5. Definitely leaning a little bit more towards the Buccaneers' favor. After going over that, I thought that I'd be on the Texans side for the defense, but their yardage really just doesn't justify what's really going on there. And the turnover differential, the defense is getting quite a lot of interceptions. They have 14 turnovers through 7 games. Bucks have had a bye week. So the Buccaneers are averaging 2 turnovers per game. I'd say we'll have a couple today. But Buccaneers, their kicker is 12 for 14 on field goals, 9 for 9 on extra points. He has 45 points this year. Texans got Keami Fairbairn. He's 17 for 18 on field goals and 13 for 13 extra points. He has 64 points this year. I did already say the odds and the line. So we've got the schedule. The Bucks are 2-1 on the road. Texans are 2-1 at home. Another matchup that we have like this. The Buccaneers, they've lost to the Eagles, Bills, Falcons, and Lions. They've beat the Vikings, Bears, and Saints. So, kind of what you would expect with the schedule there. The Texans, they've lost to the Ravens, Colts, Falcons, and Panthers. They've beat the Jags, Steelers, and Saints. Both teams have beat the Saints. So, both teams have overcame the adversity of that defense. But both teams have schedules that looking at it, makes sense. Makes perfect sense to me. But again, they have the Texans favored. Also, the over-under is 39.5. But combined points per game do not go over that. I feel like defense might be a key in this game, and the offenses aren't really going to get that much going. Those turnovers are going to be a factor. So it's going to be one or two possessions that actually go into the Bucks' favor. And the Bucks go over their points per game, and the Texans end up under their average. Because, I'm going to give the Bucks 20. Let's go with the Bucks 20 and the Texans 10. This might be a long shot one, but lock that in. 20-10, Bucks win on the road against the Texans. That is it. That is all the games for the noon games. And that's all that we're going to go through in this video. Make sure to pay attention for the other videos. Hope everyone enjoyed this video. Again, hit that like button if you did. Hit that like button if you had fun watching. Explore the other content on my channel. Hit the subscribe button if you like my content. Hope all of you guys enjoy your Sunday. Hope everybody has a good day and everybody has fun watching football. Be kind and respectful to others, and most of all, be kind and respectful to yourself. You're the number one person on this world. Nobody matters more than you do. Thank you guys for the support, and I'll see you next time.